All right, the time is now 5 p.m. I call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections. 551.072, discussion of purchase, exchange, lease, and value of real property. 551.074, discussion of officers, employees, and personnel matters. 551.076, considering the deployment, specific occasions for, or implementation of security personnel or devices. The time is now 5:01. Y'all are being so quiet. Oh my goodness. Like you're ready for me to do something. All right, the time is now 6 o'clock, and we will reconvene into open session, beginning with our invocation led by Mr. Wimberly.
Join me in prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you today with grateful hearts for the opportunity to serve our community through education. As we gather for this meeting with a bond pending, we ask for your guidance and wisdom to make the decisions that will benefit all involved. Grant us the clarity of mind, unity of purpose, and compassion in our deliberations. May we act with integrity, foresight, keeping the best interests of our students, teachers, and community at the forefront of our minds. We trust in your divine wisdom to guide us through this process and lead us to the right outcomes. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And now we have a Pledge Allegiance by Bambarino STEAM Ambassadors.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Glenn, and GISD community. Thank you for letting me bring some of our fantastic Mambrino kids tonight to do the pledges. These students are STEAM ambassadors. They're like our student council, and I'm going to let them explain that to you in just a second. Some of them have been with us since STEAM started, which is really cool because they are the first group that were kindergarten through 5th grade at Mambrino STEAM Academy, and they're leaving a great legacy of thinking outside the box and doing things in a different way. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to have Mackenzie Mendel share what our student ambassadors do, and Sky Sherwood is going to share why our ambassadors love GISD. You want to start on? Just tell me your name.
My name is Rhett Martin. My name is Finn O'Carroll.
Rhett, just wait right here, baby. Come right here.
My name is Dipson Thopalia.
My name is Allison Camacho.
My name is Jimena Espinosa.
My name is Eleanor Uribe.
My name is Sky Sherwood, and I'm going to share some reasons why we love Granbury ISD. One thing that we love about Granbury ISD is that all of the teachers make a way for all kids with different learning functions to have their own learning path. Another thing we love about Granbury ISD is learning about Granbury's history and how important and special it is to Texas.
My name is Mackenzie Mendel, and I'm going to share what the STEAM ambassadors do. First, what we do, we are leaders of the school, and we do clubs for RTI, and we're making some to educate kids, and we also are responsible.
Perfect. And we have two of the kiddos that are going to come lead each of the pledges. So Allison and Jimena are going to come lead the United States pledge. Ready? Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect. And Ellie's going to come lead the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you for letting us come and lead you tonight.
And while they're getting the kiddos ready for a picture, can we have the parents of these wonderful students stand up so we can applaud them as well? Mrs. Ship, which ones of these started out at the beginning and been all the way through? Awesome.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Ship, and I think I saw Ms. McFate, Ms. Bloodworth. Thank you all very much for being here. Ready to go?
Yep. Move on now to the Achievement Spotlight.
All right, and so again, we have one of our great community partners, Schottenkirk, with us, and I'm going to ask Brandon and Hunter to come up as we present the Schottenkirk Senior of the Month Scholarship. And Hunter McMullen is a second-year engineering student with Granbury ISD. Next year, he'll be attending Texas A&M Corpus Christi, where he will major in biomedical science. And so congratulations, Hunter, on receiving the Schottenkirk Senior of the Month Scholarship. And Brandon, thank you for being here too.
I know his proud grandparents are here tonight. And parents? Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much for bringing him along.
All right, thank you, Madam President. We do have one more special recognition. A couple of years ago, we had a donor create an endowed scholarship for our students, which I believe today generates over $50,000 a year in local scholarships for Granbury ISD students. And she is with us tonight, and I'm going to call Shelley Kurtzinger, who is our Director of Special Education, and Stacy Mitchell, who is the president of the Granbury Education Foundation, up to the podium to introduce Rachel Ledbetter.
Yes, thank you so much, Board, for having us here today. Ms. Ledbetter turned 99 on January 27th, and so she has been such a huge blessing to our students and our community, and will be for years to come because of her endowment she's given to us. And I believe Ryan has a plaque for her, and we also have the choir that's gonna, the video first, okay, is singing to her.
So our high school choir made a video for you, Mrs. Ledbetter.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miss Ledbetter. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, and then we have this plaque for happy 99th birthday from Granbury ISD to Miss Rachel Ledbetter.
Mrs. Ledbetter, thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. You truly have been a blessing to Granbury ISD, our students, and our staff, and we wish you a happy 99th birthday.
And Dr. Glenn, why don't you just go ahead and move into the superintendent report?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll tell you, we had a great month, but I'm going to spend most of my report tonight talking about the great weekend that Granbury ISD had. We had 2 students compete at the All-State Symphonic 5A Band, which puts those 2 students in the top 2% in the state. We also had 3 relays and 3 individuals from the Granbury ISD swim team advance to the state meet. So that's 10 kids in all that'll compete in the state games for swimming. Our JROTC won the National Service Championship for a 7th straight year. All of this happened this weekend. And not only did we win the championship, we actually sent 2 teams to that contest, so we finished first and second. And then we had the top 3 individuals as well as the top individual shooter, which was Cameron Wells. So shout out to Colonel Casey and First Sergeant Rositas for all they continue to do in that program. And then, if we get out of here on time, our girls start playing in Everman at 7 o'clock in the first round of the playoffs. And our boys basketball team will be playing tomorrow night in their last district game, and they'll be headed to the playoffs as well. And if you haven't had the opportunity, I see at least one proud grandpa out there, but if you haven't had the opportunity, go check out our soccer teams because they are just crushing it. In fact, one young man just signed his letter of intent to play for Air Force next year. So we have a lot of great things happening in the extracurricular world, and Granbury ISD is bearing down on spring break, which is staring at us here in, I guess, less than 4 weeks now. And then from there, we'll be getting ready to wrap it up with end-of-the-year festivities. So good weekend for the Pirates. Madam President, that's all I have this month.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. Okay, from here, we move into the public hearing of the annual TAPER report. Ms. Clark?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to go over the Texas Academic Performance Report. I was told to be brief, so I will not be longer than 30 minutes. Just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just going to hit the high points. The TAPER is really, really a long document. It will be online, and if anybody has questions, they can certainly reach out to me. But I'm going to pull out the information that I think everyone feels is pertinent. And then there are some other things during the hearing that are mandatory by the state that I have to say, and so I'll go through those quickly as well. And then if there's any questions that you have for the big group, you can ask at the end. So the highlights for our TAPER. We absolutely are outperforming the state and region, and I have a graphic for that for elementary, middle, and high in just a minute, in passing percentages for most of our academic areas. So we're very, very proud of that. Another thing that we're proud about is that our emerging bilingual population, it's growing, but it has improved in passing rates, even with the new test items that were new this past year and going online in most of the academic areas as well. There's still an opportunity for us to grow in that area, and it is going to be an area of focus. So when you see our district improvement plan next year, you can see that we're going to be focusing on emerging bilingual populations. Our graduation rate is higher than the state and the region averages, and it has been historically. And then our CCMR numbers, it's a 2-year lag. So when I go over those slides, you just have to know that that data is 2 years ago. So some of the changes that we've made in the past 2 years are to make some growth in that area, but it's not going to show up yet, quite yet. But we have started to see some of the different changes that we started making 2 years ago in that data as well. So here's our star results for passing for elementary. If you can't really see closely, the red bar is the state average, the blue bar is the Region 11 average, and our GISD bar is the purple. And so that's for 3rd reading in math, 4th reading in math, 5th reading math and science. You can see that our elementary schools are working hard and performing very well on state testing. We still have some room that we are going to be focusing on, not just keeping those passing averages high, but also in our meets and masters trying to push those percentages up as well. For middle school, you can see that we also are either close or beating the state and regional averages in all of those tested areas, except for we had a little bit of a hiccup in 7th grade reading, a little bit lower than the region. So we are looking at that in depth. And then for high school, our high school EOCs are very strong compared to our state and region numbers as well. We're super proud of these numbers because with the refresh of the test and the refresh of A through F accountability, it was kind of up in the air. So it's really nice to see that we're, with the new test format, performing well still compared to our state and regional counterparts. So here's where we start looking at our CCMR data and some of the lag data. I underlined everything where we outperform the state. So our graduation rate, like we said, is higher than the state. Our AP results, for our kids that take AP, they do better than their counterparts in the state that take the AP exams. Dual credit course completion, now that's a little bit lower than the state, and it's right the same year that we were starting to offer on-ramps, which is dual enrollment. So some of our dual credit kids started to try to see if they wanted to take dual enrollment instead, and so that caused our DC to drop a little bit, but our on-ramps went from 0 to 4.7% higher number of credits than the state average. CCMR graduates is low, but we continue to make gains there because of the lag year data. Our CT industry-based certifications is only at 20%, but the year before it was at 13%. So in 2020, it was at 13%, and so this 21-22 is at 20%. So they're starting to make some good gains on our course completions there. How many people that test ACT and SAT is lower compared to the state, and but our average scores are higher than the state in SAT and ACT. Some of the different things that I'd like to highlight on instruction, attendance, and safety and security. Let me make it bigger for me here, because I can't see it up there. So in order to continue to see these gains, we have expanded our observation feedback coaching so that we are supporting teachers and so that district admin is supporting the admins on campus who are supporting their teachers. And we are on year 2 of T-TESS and T-PESS to align with the state in hopes that sometime we will be able to do the teacher incentive allotment. And so that was the reasoning for that, and things are going well on our T-TESS and T-PESS. Our targeted and data-driven interventions. Every single one of the campuses really highlighted that they were working on individualized instruction, really hitting every kid where they were needing to be hit, and so we are pushing every kid forward in the growth measures, so that's a highlight. And we're using that through our PLCs. A lot of times they're planning those interventions during those times and aligning to make sure that they're all on the same page. Our attendance for semester 1 show us that we are getting closer to our, and I'll talk about that later this evening, but closer to our pre-COVID attendance rates. And Emmett keeps on telling me that it has to be way better than that. So we're going to continue to make attendance a focus. We have some safety and security protocols in place that are solid that we've had for the past 2 years, and we are passing our intruder audits. When I made this, it was 6, but then we had another one, so we have had 7 successful intruder audits thus far. And we've expanded our security team. And then for preventative things for our well-being of our students, we have implemented capturing kids' hearts at the secondary level. We have also implemented Can Do You, which are some good tools for kids to learn how to interact socially and those types of things, and be responsible for their work, and all of those character kind of lessons that are more pertinent to secondary, and then character lessons at the elementary schools as well. Mandatory annual report information. So District will be a B for 2023, and no GISD schools are rated D or an F. If you looked at the individual school reports, you will see that there aren't any grades on them yet. That's because they're still in litigation with TEA, so there are not any distinctions at this time. There's not really any grades at this time. We have an estimated grade, but we don't have the finals, and you saw that on the TAPER reports. Our special education determination status, we meet requirements, and with RDA, we're doing well there. And for SAFE and schools discipline action summary, there were only 3 incidents that popped up that are part of the SAFE schools codes. So, and I'll go over that in just a second, right here. So those 3 disciplinary actions, if you have a felony controlled substance instance on campus, you have to report that. And we had 2 of those. And then we also had 1 under a prohibited weapon at school last school year. And so when that happens, we can't control it from happening, but we can control how we react to it happening, and then it's a mandatory reporting. And so that's something that we have to go over here. The majority of our other discipline actions were general students' code of conduct. We are seeing some disruptive actions pretty high. Last year we had quite a few dress code things. That's decreased a little bit. We are seeing rising levels of vaping and controlled substance use on campuses. That is part of our discipline that we are trying to tackle at this time, mostly at the secondary level. And you can see all of the preventions that we go through for the drug use and the vape use. We have a whole bunch of different things that we do as far as the health teaks, Red Ribbon Week, bringing people in to speak to students about the ramifications of those types of things. And then for the other safety things, we continue to shift towards restorative practices. I already talked about capturing kids' hearts. We're going to push capturing kids' hearts down to elementary next year, so it will be a K-12 program for everyone. We also are looking at our safe schools, and the Texas School Safety Center put out some things called Start with Hello, and our counselors are going to push that out during Kindness Month at the end of this month. Campus distinctions, there's no campus distinctions, like I said, so, but that's a normal thing, that's a mandatory reporter. Once we get them, we'll push those out. Another thing that we have to report on is how our grads do entering into college. And I gave you on your report a little bit deeper information, but for the grads for the 21-22 school year, it's lag data, it shows you how many went into a 4-year public university in Texas. So if they go out of state, they're not counted in this, and that comes into the non-trackable, not found category. And we have quite a few of those. You see our 2-year public college, and then our independent colleges and universities. The other people who are not in this total or not trackable and not found are our military workers, our military force, and then those that go straight to the workforce from our schools. So, targets and areas of focus. We have had improving academics. I mean, that's what we do. That's our school business. That's always going to be an area of focus. We've also had attendance and safety and security on our list. When we met with strategic planning over the summer, we had added human capital, culture and connection, and facilities. And so for improving academics, I've already talked about improving Tier 1 instruction through coaching, having our individualized interventions and extensions be data-based and purposeful, make sure our students with special needs and our emerging bilingual students have the support that they need, because those are getting harder and harder to find as far as teachers are concerned, and we need more of them because those populations are growing in Granbury. And so specifically a 6th grade transition to middle school, you see a little bit of dip in data there, and so that's going to be a focus. Attendance, we're going to continue to use RAWE. I'm going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to talk about it now. Safety and security, you're going to see something tonight that's going to increase that. And last year we did implement, or we did add a floater marshal, and we increased our capacity at the middle schools to 2 marshals instead of 1. So we were meeting House Bill 3 prior to this school year. And then on facilities, a bond for expanding capacity and helping the traffic patterns. That was a big issue when we talked about it in strategic planning. Culture and connection, we're trying very hard to implement some of the things that were targeted in that group, such as bullying and harassment or kids feeling connected to their school. We're working on a survey right now to go out, but also implementation of capturing kids' hearts is part of that plan. And then we're going to continue the Texas Purple Star designation. And then human capital, Mr. Jones has worked very, very hard on some mentoring things to grow that and try to get people here with our job fair on the 6th of April. So we have targeted things in place to address each of our areas of focus. I think I kept it pretty short. If you have some questions, I'm happy to answer, but I could talk for half an hour on or more on all of this information. Do you have any questions for me?
Ms. Clark is also available if you want to go by and take a more in-depth dive. You can make an appointment with her. I know she's already sat down with a couple of individuals, and certainly we're always open to sit down and take a deeper dive into the data, because it's a lot to digest in a short presentation.
Especially if you want to look at campus by campus. I have that information digested too. It's just for time's sake, I'm not going to go through each campus right here.
One thing that stood out to me that I didn't, until you were presenting, I didn't catch it in the initial report, and that's our the number of students taking the ACT and SAT being down and below state average. And I wonder if I know we're the largest feeder school now to Tarleton, and part of the partnership we have with them does not require students take the SAT or ACT. Have we tracked how many of those kids are going into Tarleton that are not taking it now because of that?
No, but I had a very good conversation with Mr. Wimberly about this just not very long ago. I think part of it is that, and post-COVID, a lot of schools are not requiring ACT and SAT, but also we want to make sure that our students are getting what they need for where they're going. And so our counselors work very hard. We give the TSI for those that want to take dual credit. So when they have that and they already have dual credit hours, they don't necessarily need that unless their college is requiring it. And then if they're not going to do a 4-year college and they're just, then the TSI is usually sufficient. So a lot of the things that we have in place that we're doing for placing them strategically, that our counselors are working hard on to make sure that the kids are doing what they need to do, but not doing something just for the sake of doing it. And so that might also play into that number.
But does that change the score we get on the high school level?
Not participation. Participation of SAT and ACT does not change the score for CCMR. Okay. Great question.
The grade does, but not the participation.
For the A through F refresh, it is not part of that calculation in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just for those who are listening to all this, the report that she gave us is about 1.5 inches thick. So you don't want her to go through this right now. But there's some if you're a data nerd, there's some really good data in here to figure out exactly where we're doing and to help us know exactly where to pinpoint our focus to help the most students. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And for anyone watching online, this will be uploaded to the district website
Tomorrow. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to public comments. And I have something I want to read first, and then we will move on to those. To better serve the students, staff, and communities throughout GISD, individuals who wish to address the board during public comment portion of the board meeting are required to register online. The form can be found at the GISD website under the School Board and Board Meetings tab. If someone lacks the technology necessary to complete the online submission form, they could call the GISD Administration Building to complete the form in person at the Granbury ISD Administration Building. Registration will be open at the time the meeting agenda is posted, which is typically 5 p.m. on the Friday before the meeting or 72 hours prior to the start of a meeting, and registration will close at noon the day of the meeting. Please understand that in accordance with the Texas law, the board is not able to respond directly to comments or questions posed by the speakers during public comments. Therefore, GISD staff members will review all submissions and, if necessary, reach out to seek resolution or additional information prior to the meeting. Since the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda, the board has scheduled quarterly special meetings to hear non-agenda items. The venue will allow the board to have open discourse with the public and work to resolve issues through the many programs and experts we have within the district. An example of a non-agenda item is a few months ago when a gentleman who spoke about a broken AC on his daughter's bus. Since it was not on the agenda, we could not discuss it with him. All we could do is sit there and listen silently. In this new venue that we will start on February 26th, we could discuss the buses have been ordered, but the delivery is slow, that we will work to keep our buses running, but it's difficult with the miles they run per day. Also, we could direct him to whom to contact to directly help his particular situation. And as I said, the first special quarterly meeting will be scheduled on Tuesday, February 26th. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a Monday, isn't it? Yeah, it's a Monday, at 5 p.m. in the Granbury ISD Administration Building. Now we will go on to public comment. And the first one up is Dr. Barbara Harrington.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, and to the administrators and teachers in this room. I am so proud of each and every one of you. The report tonight, one of the things that Ms. Clark didn't mention is that Region 11 is traditionally the strongest academic region in the state. And Granbury ISD on student performance outdoes this region. That says just heaps and piles about our teachers who are in the classroom, for our administrators that give them the support they need, and for the students who feel safe and secure in our schools. And then you reported tonight on some really wonderful things that are going on in academics. And once again, those things don't just happen. And you didn't mention that in our pre-district UIL academic meets, we are kicking it. And it's not because the kids just show up and do it. In every one of these activities, teachers show up and lead them and lead the way. So thank y'all for supporting the students, the teachers, and the staff for all that to happen. But I'm really here tonight to say to the 5 of you that I saw at the bond planning meeting, thank you for being there, for listening to the things that our community wanted to do and the things that we didn't have the money to do without raising taxes. And thank you for being aware of our taxpayers and keeping the tax rate the same. I am so proud of that and so proud of each and every one of you. And if tonight, the two of you that did not show up at those meetings happen to vote no, on the bond issue. All I can say is, shame on you. Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Monica Brown. Is she out there? Okay.
That's being disruptive.
Mr. Jim Brown?
Come on, Tony, you're better than that.
Hello, Board. My name is Jim Brown. I live in Granbury. I'm a concerned member of this community. This board is asking for $161 million at about the same time that our county may be asking for $100 million for a new jail. And it's also gearing up for money for construction from the city as far as 377, the expansion, the wastewater plant, the fresh water issues at hand. We will in time be the ones paying for all of this. At some point in time, we have to pay. Our homes and local businesses will be used as collateral for what is going to be a debt. As Republicans, of which I'm assuming most everyone in this room is represented from a conservative perspective, we believe in no debt, little debt. We believe in very fast paying of these debts. We have barely scratched the surface at paying a bond, from my understanding, about 10, 11 years ago, 90 million. I think it's paid down to about 83 million. Our cities in North Texas, such as Frisco, and I recently heard Argyle, are finding that people can't afford the taxes and they're moving out. That is exactly what could happen in Granbury. We may need more classrooms, and by all means, I'm very much for the students of Granbury High School. I'm not here to rail on students. I just want to make sure that I feel comfortable that you, the board that represents these students and your community, are fiscally responsible and not grabbing for too much money. We may need more classrooms, we may need more buses, and the slogan is for the kids. And I have been accused of not being for the kids if I'm not for the bond. The majority of the students come from struggling families. To push this bond in light of all the other projects we will be paying for just seems unreasonable. To push this bond in light of other projects we will be paying for, I say that we should support the families and not the bond. There has to be a more fiscally responsible way to approach our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Cherie Westland.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, community members, teachers, and staff, I wanted to discuss item 12. Passing item 12 is not just an investment in our future, it's an investment in our community. I stand before you today with great admiration and appreciation for the incredible work that has been done by the teachers and the staff and community members in our beloved GISD. It is not just a school district, it is a community that shapes the future of our children. Today, I urge you to pass item 12 for the sake of our children, for our community, and our future. GISD is in dire need of attention. The rapid population growth poses challenges that cannot be ignored, sanitation issues, and more importantly, transportation problems that require an urgent solution. Our children deserve a safe and efficient means of getting to and from school. Let us stand together in support of item 12 for the betterment of GISD, for the prosperity of our children, and for the success of our community. Together, we can ensure GISD remains a beacon of education and growth and opportunity for the generations to come. And for people who didn't attend the bond meetings, it's hard for me to grasp voting no when you didn't attend the bond meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Wesley. And our last speaker tonight is Ms. Beverly Cheney.
Hi, y'all. I just want to say thank you to all of you, not just for the work that y'all did in working on the bond, but inviting the public in to work with you. Because as you sat in the strategic planning meetings, you saw people from all walks of life, all sides, all areas of the county, people with differing ideas, people who had originally opposed the bond, and they were coming to find out what the problems were and how to come up with solutions. And you'll open these meetings up to that, and I appreciate it. And thank you for in those meetings explaining things like bond capacity and how can we get this money without really raising the tax rate. Because you see those questions, but people who really wanted to know showed up and got the answers, and y'all gave them. And thanks for listening to the group. And I know it wasn't easy, because we heard departments and teachers and campuses, and they all were coming in and they had asks that they thought were so important for their area. And yet it was important to the group not to raise the tax rate. And so some of those people with asks and some of those departments had to be told no. And that was a tough job, but y'all did it. And y'all did it in order to keep the tax rate the same. And I thank you for all that. And now this message is for the public. Please get the facts. Before I came here tonight, I jumped online and got down a rabbit hole of information and misinformation about the bond. And I was just kind of dismayed and surprised by the things that people say. Some fake profiles, some real profiles. It's just amazing that it's just, I hope, ignorance about the facts. I hope it's not deliberate misleading, but it's hard to tell. So I want the public to keep something in mind. When you read something online, I don't care if I've written it, or if your neighbor's written it, or if a local politician has written it. If it's written online by a citizen, it does not have to be true. If you want the truth, go to the GISD website, because if Dr. Glenn says it, or the school says it, it is bound by the law to be accurate. And if it's not accurate, then they are risking, under penalty of law, being penalized. And I don't care how you feel about this administration or this school, I don't believe that anybody here is willing to go to prison or go to jail or be prosecuted for giving misinformation about the bond. So if you get it from the school, it's not going to be misleading and it's not going to be a misrepresentation. It's going to be the truth. So check it out on the school website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cheney, and that is the end of our public comments. We will now move to the action items discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Madam President. You have before you several items discussed in closed session. We'll start off with staff recommendations. I want to thank Wes Jones and the HR department for putting those together for us tonight. You have before you not only staff resignations, but also some retirements, and it'll be our recommendation that you approve as presented.
Okay. Do I have a motion on staff recommendations?
Madam President, I move that we approve the staff recommendations as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Solana. All those in favor of the staff recommendations, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam President. Item B on the action items as discussed in closed session is a catastrophic leave request. Again, this was put together by Wes Jones and our HR department. It was run through our catastrophic leave committee as our recommendation that you approve as presented.
Do I have a motion for the catastrophic leave request?
Madam President, I move that we approve the catastrophic leave request as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. All those in favor of approving the catastrophic leave request, please raise your hand. And that is also unanimous.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, the last item that is up for action tonight is administrative contracts. Again, you have the recommendation of the administration in front of you. It is our recommendation that you approve the contracts for the administrative staff as presented.
Do I have a motion for the accepting the administrative contracts?
Madam President, I move that we approve the administrative contracts as presented to us.
Thank you, Ms. Alana. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All those in favor of approving the administrative contracts, please raise your hand. And that is also unanimous.
Thank you, Board. The last item doesn't require action. It's just notification as required by state law of an intruder audit that took place last month at Granbury High School. That was our 6th audit. All have been successfully passed by our Chief of Security, Mr. Clark, Deputy Chief John Mueller, who are in the back, and of course all the marshals that are on our campuses. I will tell you that late last week we actually had another intruder audit. We just didn't have the opportunity to get it on the agenda at GMS. So that puts us now successful at 7 of the 10 audits that will be conducted by the state of Texas on our campuses this year. So great job by our marshal team continuing to make sure that we're taking as proactive approach on all of our campuses as it relates to student and staff safety.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda items. Board, are there any items that you would like to pull out and discuss before we continue?
Madam President, I'd like to pull out item 11B, budget amendments.
Okay, are there any others that need to be pulled out? Okay, Ms. Gore, go ahead.
I just want to take this time to recognize the community members that have been so generous to our district and the contributions that they've made. We've had a donation from the GMS PTO to GMS campus for the AT&T field trip in the amount of $235.67. We've had donations by Matthew and Laura Ballou, Scott Lewis, and from Jimmy and Catherine Humphrey to FFA for the range team, horse judging, and career and development events, totaling $1,250. We've had a donation from the Granbury Pirate Basketball Booster Club to the GHS Boys Basketball for travel expenses in the amount of $3,000. We've had a donation from the Granbury Optimist Club to the GHS Choir and Theater Department to help with the cost of the Grease production in the amount of $1,000. And we've had donations from Homer Robertson with the Texas Cowboy Symposium to the GHS Culinary and Barbecue Team for travel expenses for a $5,000 donation. Total donations from the community this month is $10,485.67. Please be sure and thank them if you see them out in the community. We wouldn't be able to do what we do for these kids without their support. So we're very grateful to have that community support, and Granbury is definitely better for it.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. Okay, the consent agenda items that we're voting on today is the approval of the minutes from previous meetings and consider the budget amendments. So I will ask for a motion.
Madam President, so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Gore.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. All those in favor of the consent agenda items, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. All right, folks, moving on to 12A. Discuss and consider adoption of an order calling a special election for Granbury ISD to be held on May 4, 2024, consisting of a single bond proposition in the approximate amount of $161,500,000 for school buildings and land sites for school buildings. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. A little history first. The district, back in May of 2022, called a bond election for $394 million. I had the opportunity, Emmett and I were looking at financial numbers, kind of reflecting on that bond, which failed overwhelmingly. And we were looking at a lot of things that the community, let me say this, I don't think the district communicated well to the community. For example, interest rates at that time, had we borrowed that money, were right at about 2%, which were like historically low. Think about your own home mortgage being able to borrow at 2%. That's borrowing at a pretty cheap rate. And then we were reflecting back on where we're at now, and had that bond passed, that high school facility would be getting ready to be completed next May, so we'd be about a year and a half away from completion. And so we knew after that bond that we had to do something different. The economy was in bad shape. We had, I guess, just come off COVID. Appraisals had just skyrocketed, and we were asking for a tax increase. And so we took a little over a year to come back with another bond, which happened this past November. And we, after listening, really spending a lot of time listening to our community, to parents, talking with our staff, like in depth about what we really did wrong, we scaled it way down to $151.7 million at no tax rate increase. So we were essentially going to sell off our bond capacity. The city or the county does the same thing. They call it certificates of obligation. So if you ever see, like in the newspaper, where the city sells $50 million in bonds, they're essentially selling their capacity. They're keeping the tax rate the same, and they're just extending their payments is what they're doing. Much like you would do on a home mortgage. If you went out and took out a second mortgage on your house, you want to keep the rate the same, but you may be paying on it longer. That's what the city does. It's what the school does. The difference between the city and the school is we have to have an election before we can do that. And so this past November, we said that we're going to keep the tax rate the same, and we asked for that bond capacity, $151.7 million, to renovate our elementary schools, to build a new elementary school located behind HEB, to build a bus hub on the eastern side of town, which will allow us to really have more flexibility in our school day. For the elementary teachers and parents in the room, you know that we start school really early. If we could not start school so close to 7 o'clock and maybe push it off to like 7:30 or 7:45, that would make a huge difference, not only for staff, but for kids that are waiting on routes early in the morning. And we get out of school really late. I see some high school teachers in the room. It's not uncommon for a high school teacher to walk off that campus at 5:15, because school gets out late. And so if we could get out of school a little early, that would be a huge plus too. An Eastern bus hub would allow us to do that. 30 new buses would go a long way in helping us with an aging fleet. Right now, we take old buses and we put new engines in them, because that's about $60,000. And the cost of a new bus can range anywhere from $145,000 to $175,000, depending on the brand you want. And then they take about a year for delivery, where we can get the engines and just put our guys to work putting in new engines, and it's cheaper, but it's in an old bodied bus. So that in and of itself, well, and then I guess middle school renovations, that in and of itself was the bond for the November election. It failed by 2 votes. with historic turnout. About 12,500 people came out to vote. Most people that I talked to that were pretty plugged into elections expected probably 8,000 to 10,000 people. So, our community was engaged. And it fell short by what's roughly a 50-50 split. We went back to the drawing board again with the intent of really putting something out there, not to win by 1 or 2 votes, but to really find something our community could get behind. And we know that it seemed to be a non-starter to talk about raising taxes, and so we wanted to focus first and foremost on what could we get with not increasing our tax rate at all. And so leaving that tax rate the same, and seeing that interest rates now are starting to go down a little bit, and values in our community continue to grow, that same no tax rate increase will now yield $161.5 million. But costs go up, so there's escalation that we have to figure in. Much like the city water plant, which was mentioned earlier, if they had built that when they originally had all the permits and were ready to break ground, the city manager told me it cost about $10 million. He's estimating now that it'll cost $35 million for the same plant just because they waited. So it's not cheaper to wait. There will be no discount on elementary schools in 3 years. They're not going to be like 25% off if we wait. Construction costs will continue to escalate. And so for that reason, we met with a strategic planning committee in January, and they said, put forth the same bond, do not increase our tax rate, but you've got to also address the high school. The one thing, if you've got a little bit of extra money in this bond, the one thing that wasn't addressed last time was the high school. And we all understand that eventually there will likely be a high school on the Acton side of town one day. But until that day comes, we still have a building that was originally built in 1972, and it was renovated in 2013, but there are about 150 air conditioning units on that facility. 133 of them are over 20 years old. One of them is from 1985, and it is tough and expensive for Mr. Whitefield to find parts for an air conditioner from 1985. When they replace that unit, they'll do it with a helicopter, so it's not going to be a cheap replacement either. In addition to that, I know we have some English teachers in the room, and they will tell you that the plumbing will back up, and there is a strong sewage stench at times in some of our facilities. Our kids deserve better. I know the plumbing is old. The original bones of that building are from 1972. We use our buildings in this district for a long, long time. And so those are things that we need to address. The roof. The roofs, as beautiful as that building was when it was remodeled, there's a major roof leak that runs through the fine arts facility. That needs to be repaired. Just like you would take care of a roof leak in your own house, we need to take care of that as well. Again, it's not something we can do within our M&O budget without having to make cuts, quite frankly, to programs or to staff. 85%, 84% of our M&O budget is staff. So we don't have a lot of meat on the bone when we talk M&O budget without cutting into our staff. The last two things that we'd like to address with the high school budget, one is a sidewalk and a crosswalk out front. For those of you who don't know, we had a student hit by a car last year. Lots of students walk across Pearl Street. It is a very, very, very busy road with 2,300 kids in that building. And so we want to address that as from a safety concern. We want to add safety cameras and also some, safety equipment district-wide. And finally, within the context of the current building, we want to try and create more classroom space. We're not talking about adding on. That could get really expensive, but we certainly want to take advantage of all the excess space that we possibly have in that building. And so for that reason, the committee recommended a bond in the amount of $161.5 million. It will not increase the INS tax rate, therefore leaving the tax rate at 93.42 is a total tax rate for Granbury ISD. We are asking tonight that you put that on the May 2024 ballot as recommended by the Strategic Planning Committee. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a couple questions. We have land. What is, in our summary says that the land sites you're looking for this bond to be, what are those going to be used for?
Yeah, so the land site would, oh, you're saying the language on the ballot?
On the summary, it says 161 million for school buildings and for land sites for school buildings. What kind of buildings?
Yeah, so the building specifically would be a new elementary school located behind HEB. The district does own that land.
Right.
So this isn't to purchase any new land?
No, however, let me say this, we leave that language in there because if there are easements that we need to get, or as we get into renovations of other buildings, if we want to use bond money to secure other pieces of property in the district, we can.
Okay. And do I understand this correctly? We don't have like any funds or maintenance funds to buy over a period of years for HVAC or to fix maintenance on the buildings?
We do, and we actually, how much did we spend last year on HVAC, Emmett?
We replaced 81 units, and it was $1.5 million.
Okay, so we do that. It just is, as we've grown, and I went back and pulled, and I know you asked for numbers for our current year, but I went back and pulled February of 2018, so going back to my first year here, the district had right at just over 7,000 kids. And so we've grown fast. We've actually plateaued this year, so we jumped up really quick from about 2018 to 2021, adding probably about 100 kids a year or more. This year we flatlined a little bit, and there are a lot of reasons to that. I would say probably most notably is that you still got the moratorium for the city, and so building has slowed down, but probably what's really slowed down building is the fact that interest rates have jumped up so high. And so you're kind of seeing that flat line across the Metroplex right now. But make no mistake, developers continue to buy land. Had a conversation with the mayor of Crescent. She sent me just estimates on what she expects to see as a population growth in Crescent over the next 5 years. She's projecting over 8,000, which is a lot. For those of you who don't know, this district runs all the way past Crescent, probably about right at between here and Lipan, and then nearly to Toller. So we're about 225 geographic square miles, and construction is going on from Mambrino to Bronner all the way to Crescent. And so as we look at a proposal like this, we're not really looking at what's needed right now, even though right now we really do need an elementary school because we could just about fill it, but we're also trying to plan for where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
The state will say on the ballot that it will have to say that this is a tax increase. Is that correct?
That is correct. So on the ballot, it'll say this is a property tax increase. Keep in mind, there's a difference between a property tax increase and a property rate increase. So we will leave the rate the same, but we will take on more debt. And so currently our debt is scheduled to be paid off in 2039. This will extend that by 15 years. So it's pretty remarkable that a district could take on $161 million in debt, and if we don't grow at all, meaning not one person moves into our community, we'll still be able to make those payments and pay our debt off in 30 years. So.
Okay, one more question. The $1 million that we got back from HCAT, was any of that, what was that used for, to help any maintenance on the buildings?
Yeah, so we did use some of that on buses, and again, that goes into our general fund balance, and so we essentially roll that into our current budget, 23-24 budget. So right now, I would say that money sits in fund balance less the $224 million for $224,000 for buses. Good questions, thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to hear from the trustees that weren't able to attend the strategic planning. And I'm not, whether you attend or not attend, I'm not here to judge on that, but I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions on this bond proposal. I know, Billy, you had to go out of the country, so you missed some, but I'd like to hear from you and Melanie and Karen. I really want to know your thoughts on this and where you stand on it.
I would like to have been there. I was gone for a month, and it covered that entire period, but I'm definitely for the proposal was before for the previous one and for this one as well.
My family was sick, so I wasn't able to attend, but my thoughts, what I think about it, will be known when I vote.
I believe that there are things that need to be done in this school district. I would like to have seen more planning on how to utilize things that are already here. You're right, as everybody knows, as everybody's pointed out, no, I did not attend. But I also think that there's an awful lot of hurting people. We've got 56% economically disadvantaged. If we keep raising taxes on them through the county, through the city, through the school, through the hospital district, then they're going to not be able to stay in their homes, and I think that's a consideration.
I think that's why the community was so adamant about doing this a zero tax rate increase, because they're aware. I mean, that's just a testament to the growth our county is experiencing. But, you know, we have an obligation to make sure the kids in our community have a place to get educated. So that's our charge. That's what we have to make sure we're providing.
Yeah, and again, just a reminder to trustees, all you're doing is giving the community an opportunity to vote. You're not doing anything other than that. You're letting our community step out in May and make a decision. So if you want to let the community decide whether or not this is a good proposal, you approve the recommendation and let this go on the ballot or not. And it will be the recommendation of the administration that you move forward. Y'all see the growth on the highways. You see the cars stacking up on 377. Same thing's happening in our hallways.
I think I'm not someone that was born and raised here in Granbury. Got here as quick as I could. And everybody I know wishes they were the last person to ever move here. But that's not the way it's going to work. We're going to keep on growing, and it is our responsibility to be able to give the children who move into this district the best education we can. And that can't be done in buildings that are falling apart and in crowded classrooms. Crowded classrooms mean you don't have as much teacher interaction. Crowded classrooms mean you have more discipline problems. Crowded classrooms mean that people can fall through the cracks who need our help. And that is why I believe that we need to put this bond on the ballot.
Madam President, I would agree with you. As someone who's actually worked in the school district for many, many, many years, it's quite obvious that our students and our teachers deserve facilities that they don't have to teach in closets or in the hallways. We are growing. We cannot deny that we're growing. And as members of this board of trustees, our only obligation is to make sure that we are doing the right thing for Granbury ISD. We cannot control the city's rate or the county's rate or the hospital district's rate. What we can control is the decisions that we make to let this school district grow and move forward. And whether we like it or not, it's going to grow. It is growing day by day. And I can tell you that these teachers and students that we see every day spend at least 40 hours a week in facilities that are too small, too tight, have plumbing issues, have roofing issues, despite the amount of maintenance that we provide each and every year on those facilities. They're old, they're used. As we keep saying, closets and folks' work, that is exactly what we've got. Some folks at Bronner and Acton Elementary, they have moved into janitorial closets in order to have small group instruction. And as a school board trustee, it is my obligation to be an advocate for Granbury ISD and for public education. And beyond a doubt, We need it. We can kick it down the road, but it's only going to cost us more. And if we fail to pass this bond election, then shame on the voters that decided to vote against a bunch of kids that deserve to be educated in buildings that aren't falling apart.
Well
Thank you,
said, Nancy. I just wanted to chime in and say this is not a want list or a wish list. This is a need list. This is a necessity, and I am 100% behind it.
Just as a reminder to those watching online in the audience, the last time we built an elementary school in Granbury was 1996, and that was Mambrino. 2001 was the last time we constructed buildings in this district, and so that's over 20 years ago. That was GMS and AMS. So the district doesn't have a long history of coming in and asking for a lot. We ask for what we need when we need it. Then obviously we had a bond in 2013 that renovated the high school and renovated this building as well. So that's 11 years ago. So we're back with a real emphasis on our elementary schools, specifically getting that extra elementary on the ground.
That 2013 bond also took care of security problems at every single one of our campuses. That's when we put the vestibules in. That's when we made sure that someone couldn't just walk into any campus whenever they needed to. So that bond took care of issues that we needed at that time. This bond does the same thing without raising the tax rate. I am ready for a motion.
All right, Madam President, I move that we call a special election for Granbury ISD to be held on May 4th, 2024, consisting of a single bond proposition in the approximate amount of $161,500,000 for school buildings and land sites for school buildings.
Thank you, Ms. Solano. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? 5-2. The nays are Ms. Lowry and Ms. Gore.
Madam President, motion to reconsider.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Graft. I apologize.
Madam President, motion to reconsider.
Second.
We have a motion to reconsider. A motion to reconsider means that a board member feels that he or she needs more information before they can make this decision. So those who are in favor of the motion to reconsider, please raise your hand. Those opposed? 5-2. The nays being Ms. Lowry and Ms. Graft. Go ahead, Ms. Gore.
I'd like to know your reasons for voting no. Maybe there's something you know that I'm not aware of that I need to consider.
I've talked to constituents, and what I'm hearing is even families who have children in the system, they are asking me, because it's going to be on the ballot, that it's a tax increase. How is it for the kids if they're being taxed out of their homes? And I hear this over and over and over again. And so when the constituents keeps telling me that, that's what the majority of what I hear, that's where my vote comes from.
This is not a tax rate increase. We have no control over home values increasing and then that increasing their tax bill. The only thing that we control is the tax rate, and this does not increase the tax rate.
Then why is the wording on the ballot?
Because that's from Austin. That's the legal wording required by HB 3.
I can answer that. It is a property tax increase because we're adding more debt. And so we're extending out our debt. So again, it's not a rate increase, but people will pay more in property taxes. However, I will say to the rate point in taxing people out of their homes, if you look at like the general area, there are not many places you're going to find in our area that have a lower tax rate than Granbury ISD. I would think Glen Rose that has nuclear power plant, probably the only one that directly comes to mind. No one with more than 7,000 kids.
Well, it brings up the other issue too of the debt, and they don't want the debt on their kids. A lot of the people that I talk to, they're telling me, this is debt that my kids are going to be paying for and their kids are going to be paying for. So they're concerned about the debt as well.
That's the way school finance is in Texas. The only way that we can fund big projects like this is through a bond election. Like that is it. So it's either we continue to put kids in closets and hallways. I mean, we've got kids without desks. They're having to sit on the floor with no desks. My son is in this school. My kids go to this school, so I see firsthand the issues that we're having. And I understand debt. Nobody likes debt, but that's the way school financing is set up in Texas. So what would you propose we do to address the growth that our district is having without having a bond? What is your solution?
I've already said all that I'm going to say. I'm not
asking
here to
for your
fight.
input. I'm really trying to have an honest conversation here. I really would like to know, what is your solution? If we can't go for a bond, what do you propose we do? Because this is our job. This is our literal job right here. This is what we were elected to do. So I'm open to any suggestions. I would like to know what your proposal for a solution is.
For those of us that have attended the meetings and received all the data, the information as board members, that is what we consider, and it's very apparent this is a need for Granbury ISD. If we were to bring students in here and faculty members in here that could tell us what goes on as far as capacity and problems they have as far as capacity, what would you say to them? If you're only going to say to the board or to your constituents about it's going to raise taxes, how would you explain that to a group of students who are in overcrowded classrooms? One of the things that we're charged with as board members is to be transparent. And I feel like those of us that are for it have been more than transparent in presenting all kinds of information and receiving that information. But those that are against it are not providing any message to the voters as to why you are against it. The only information we receive is that it's a lot of money.
Can I share a story with you? Melanie, I'm talking to you. Okay. So it's my son. This is something that he's had to do personally. And hearing this as a mom, it hurts my heart. And I know this is no fault of the district or the teachers or the lunchroom cafeteria. It's just, it is a product of having that many kids in a school. He has had to ask to go use the restroom so that he could grab his lunch out of his backpack to go finish eating in the bathroom, because that lunchroom was never designed to hold and feed that many kids. This is what our kids in our district are facing every day. What do you say to those kids? What do you say to my son? What do you say to my son who has to do that just to be able to eat a meal because we're so overcrowded at our campuses? Nothing? Okay, Karen, would you like to share your reason? I'm really trying to have an honest discussion. This isn't to argue. I really want to know.
No, this has been a thing here from the beginning. Everybody got up and they all wanted to make sure everybody in the room knows that the two of us were not there. Everybody knows that. That's fine. We can have our own opinion as trustees on why we think. We are not obligated to share with you the reason why. What are the main functions of a board? To hire the superintendent, to adopt a vision or mission, monitor the activities that follow that mission, set the district policy and the board policy, approve a budget, and communicate with the community. And we have been communicating with the community, and they have said, we don't want this. That is the way we are voting from the people that we hear. Do children need new things? I'm sure they do. But that's all I'm going to say on it right now.
Would you not agree that it would be part of...
That's all I'm going to say on it right now.
Okay, and I have a follow-up question. Would you not agree it's our job as trustees to inform the community of the situation that our schools are in so that they have all that information?
They have been informed.
So I'll finish with this. It's We know we have a lot of work to do as an administrative staff to communicate information, and we don't advocate vote yes or vote no, but we try and communicate factual information. And we have to do a better job of that. To the story that Ms. Gore just shared, for those of you who don't know, we have campuses that will start serving lunch just after 10 o'clock in the morning. And they will stop at about 1:45, 1:50 in the afternoon. So think about that. Like the majority of the school day, we have so many kids that we have to feed that we have to start serving lunch shortly after they arrive at school, and we don't stop serving lunch until right before they go home. We have kids at Bronner. They're in portable buildings, and if they need to go to the bathroom, there's no bathrooms in the buildings, so they have to walk outside regardless of the weather, and then they have to go inside the building to go to the restroom, and then they have to go back. That's not the safest environment. And we are, someone said it, we are 56% economically disadvantaged, but per capita, this is one of the wealthiest communities in the state of Texas. And I can tell you that administrations and school boards do not call school bonds without a reason. And for anybody watching online or that you talk to that's maybe a constituent, tell them to come see me. We can go walk through the buildings. I took a group of retired teachers, some of whom were like, I was in that building in 1972. It's fine. It's even bigger now. I took them and let them stand in the hallway with me during a class change. And the high school is great. Even though that's only a small piece of this bond, the high school is great to see our growth because you can actually feel it 8 times a day when those kids walk out. You don't really get to feel that in an elementary school because we just cram as many as we can into a classroom and they have to stay in the classroom. And then when they come out, it's maybe, a few classes at a time. We don't say, hey, every elementary kid, just walk out of your classroom 8 times a day. That would be chaos at the elementary level. But if we were to do that, you would see that the elementary schools have a far greater problem than the high school, which many of our high school teachers would say is an issue for them right now. And so for that reason, Madam President, again, the administration reiterates its recommendation that the board call for this bond.
First off, I would like to thank Ms. Graft and Ms. Lowry for giving us some of their information and some of their reasons, because we do need that feedback from the constituents that you talk to, as well as the ones we talk to. So I appreciate you giving your opinion on that. At this time, then, I will again call for a motion.
Madam President, I move that we call a special election for Granbury ISD to be held on May 4th, 2024, consisting of a single bond proposition in the approximate amount of $161,500,000 for school buildings and land sites for school buildings.
And may I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. So we have a motion by Ms. Gore, a second by Mr. Wimberly. Those in favor, raise your hand. And those opposed, 5-2. The nays being Ms. Graft and Ms. Lowry. We will now move on to discuss and consider approving election contracts with Hood and Parker County.
Thank you, Madam. Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Again, now that you've called an election, we need to approve election contracts. Just so you know, Somerville County and Johnson County will not be hosting May elections, so Hood County will provide notice to the Johnson and Somerville County voters that they will need to come to Hood County to vote. It is our recommendation that you approve the contracts with Hood County and Parker County and allow the administration to execute them. You have the Parker County contract in there. I will tell you the Hood County contract will be similar, although in speaking today with the elections office, they are waiting on one more early voting location to get confirmation, and then we can finalize that agreement.
Any discussion? Then may I have a motion, please?
Madam President, I move that we approve the election contracts with Hood and Parker counties.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. All those in favor, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Moving on now to consider an amendment for school marshal procedures. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. As Mr. Clark makes his way down here, I'll tell you that the amendment we're asking for tonight is duty belt carry for our uniform marshals. For probably well over a year, we've been working toward this goal. I know Mr. Wimberly accompanied us down to Austin during the legislative session. Representative Slauson was actually trying to pass a bill that clarified some of the language. Fortunately for us, Senator Brian Birdwell was able to ask for an AG opinion, which made the clarification for her and for us and for every district that has uniform marshals. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Clark.
Absolutely. Dr. Glenn, Madam President, Board of Trustees, I'm excited to be here and ask for these changes to the guidelines and for your approval on them. As Dr. Glenn said, we've been working on this for I feel like the better part of 2 years now. We've worked with a lot of legislators and elected officials in both the House and the Senate to try to make this happen, and we finally are there. So we're asking for duty belt carry in the active retention holster. It's much the same as the same holster you see on every patrol officer around the state of Texas. It is the safest way for your uniform marshals to do that, and I'm here for any questions if you have them.
When do you think, if we approve it tonight, when do you believe that your officers will have that?
So we have a couple of trainings lined up this week, one at the end of the week where we're training with Granbury PD on some things, and then we will go live Monday the 19th.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions?
Just thank y'all for doing this and taking the initiative to get this AG opinion. And I know those are hard to get, and sometimes you got to wait forever for them, but this one was worth it. Thank you.
I do find it very interesting that y'all did the groundwork, and virtually districts all over the state of Texas are grabbing hold of this as fast as they can.
They are. My phone started ringing right away. I've had several school districts reach out to me about this, and of course, all very thankful because they didn't have to do the heavy work and the heavy lifting, and they're just going to all get to bring this to their board as well and get to have these benefits for their school district as well.
Yes, thank you for that. All right, I'll have a motion.
Madam President, I move that the board approve duty belt carry for all uniformed marshals and guardians.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Alana. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you, board.
Consider budget assumptions and calendar for the 2024-2025 budget. Mr. Whitefield.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you do have the budget process and the assumptions that we are using to guide our development of the budget for the fiscal year 24-25. That fiscal year will run September 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2025. Currently, our fund balance falls within board limits, and the current operating budget does reflect a $239,456 deficit budget. Added expenditures to the facility improvements and remodeling projects and other initiatives will impact projected fund balance. With district spending lapses, conservative budget management, and the district will likely not realize the entire deficit. Even with the anticipated decrease, the district's fund balance still remains in good financial operations. In addition to the unassigned fund balance, the district's fund balance still has committed fund balances under capital expenditures and other purposes. The current deficit budget for the purchases of the 2 additional buses falls within the capital expenditure equipment fund balance, and then therefore we'll probably have to make an adjustment to that committed fund balance. As for the revenue for this 24-25 year, the taxable value of property is projected to increase again in 24-25. However, keep in mind that House Bill 3 and Senate Bill 2 from this past session substantially changed the way the state funding and recapture are calculated. Among other things, current year property values are now used to calculate state funding and recapture as opposed to prior years. And also keep in mind that House Bill 3 put in place a 2.5% cap. This cap limits the amount of revenue the district can generate from tax collections by compressing the district's Tier 1 M&O tax rate, currently as $66.92 for tax year 2023. However, the district did pass the VATRE, which adds an additional 17 cents in golden and copper pennies. The degree to which the district's M&O tax rate will be compressed this year is still to be determined by the state and local tax compression rates, and you have examples of that in your book. Under these examples, it would be the lesser of the two. And under the examples that are presented to you, that example, the local compression would be the lesser of the two. And we would be limited due to the TEA's mandated to maintain a tax rate equity note that no district may have an MCR less than 90% of any other district, which would be 61.92. However, we get to 17 cents, so that would put us about 78.92 on our M&O rate. Tax collections will be considered to be at 99%, as historically they are. We will project a student growth of 1.37%, which is based on about 100 student increase, which is very conservative, at a 94% attendance rate. Under state aid, we will continue to receive some state funding under House Bill 3. Based on current enrollment data, ADA, and projected tax data collections, GISD is anticipating a recapture payment this year right at $4 million to the state for this year. However, keep in mind this recapture amount is based on that projected ADA and the comptroller's final property values. This amount could increase. Recapture is estimated to remain steady or slightly decrease for the 24-25 year. For expenditures in the budget, we will have a per pupil allocation on each campus, and central office and department budgets will remain the same as they are this year. Staffing formulas for salaries and benefits will be utilized as they have been in the past, and GISD teacher salary rankings with area districts will continue to be reviewed, and then salary schedules for other district employees will continue to be reviewed as well to keep us in line with those like-type jobs. The district insurance contribution will be budgeted at $378 per month, which is what it currently is. This can be increased by the board or decreased by the board, either way. And for ongoing financial management, the budget process will be structured to identify programs and activities that can be reduced or eliminated with little or no impact to operations or teaching or learning. And you do have a copy of the budget calendar in there as well for your information. And that is the budget assumptions for the 24-25 school year.
Thank you, Emmett. Does anyone have any questions on his development, his assumptions, or the calendar? May I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we use the budget process and assumptions guiding development of the general fund budget for the 24-25 fiscal years outlined by our CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Gore. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Moving on, consider request for qualifications of real estate broker services. Mr. Whitefield.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you do have the RFP 1003. The Finance Department issued the RFP 1003 bid for real estate broker services. There were 3 responses to that. All 3 do meet the qualifications of GISD. We recommend that the board select one of the above suppliers or more, or all 3.
Is there any discussion on this?
I'd like to make the motion.
Go right ahead.
I make a motion to accept the proposal written for the VYBE Realty to perform the services as GISD real estate broker in accordance with RFP 1003.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry and Ms. Graft. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. So we have 1 abstain, Mr. Moore, since he works in loans, that becomes a conflict of interest.
Business conflicts, yes.
We have those voting against is Alana. So that makes it 5-4, 1 abstain, and 1 nay.
Madam President, I vote, make a motion to reconsider.
Oh. Okay. I need a
I'll second.
Okay. I'm interested to hear why.
We have to vote. We have to vote.
Okay.
We have to vote on the reconsider.
Well, I need to know why.
We have to vote on his motion
I'd
to
like to-
reconsider first.
I want to know why he wants to reconsider.
I'd like to hear Mrs. Alana's reason.
Oh, okay.
I feel
So
like
let's
we-
vote, we can vote then. We got to vote first. Okay, those in favor of the reconsideration?
Reconsider.
4? And then you're still abstaining? Okay. So that's 4-2 with 1 abstain. Go ahead. Ms. Alana.
Okay, I felt like we just voted too fast on that. There wasn't any discussion, and we've got 3 quality groups that submitted their information, and I don't know why one is any better than the other, and I think we need to discuss that.
Okay.
I'm not sure why one's better than the other either. I think honestly, we could go with any of them and they all do a great job for us.
I think if with Winston Properties, they already are admitting they have a conflict of interest.
I
That
agree.
will pose a problem for us a little bit later.
Mhm.
And also, Emmett, on the RFP, did it state that everything should be written as negotiable? Was that within the RSP? Because these guys, one put 5, one put 6, one put negotiable. And in the RFP, is it stated that you have to put your address on the RFP?
So I would have to defer to Mr.
Yeah.
Schraby on that.
Yeah, and I can answer the question. So it is a request for qualifications, not a request for proposals. So in a request for a proposal, they would actually submit a rate or a fee. In a request for qualifications, we're just examining the qualifications of the firms or individuals that are presented. Therefore, no rate or fee will be negotiated till after the board selects, and then you'll rely on your board president to execute that contract and agreement.
So this should have been an RFQ instead of an RFP?
No. It is an RFQ. It is an RFQ. Just you had a couple of individuals that decided they would throw, I think it was one, and then another one called in.
Okay.
So,
Because this says RFP.
Okay. So
It does say RFP, but it is RFQ. It's a
it is
request for
an RFQ.
qualifications.
Okay.
And is it within the paperwork that you fill out that you have to put your address on your RFQ?
Yes, so all the 3 real estate brokers that submitted their response had their W-9 address, all of that in our electronic e-bid system that we collect.
Okay, thank you.
So not necessarily in our paperwork?
Correct, because that's part of their electronic bidding profile, and it's way longer than what's submitted. And that stays on file, and it's electronic.
And is there a reason why we should pick only 1 or 2? Like, is there a positive or a negative to having more than 1 broker available, or?
I recommend selecting more than 1 because it all depends on the property. This is having a real estate broker on file for.
I wasn't going to make you, and it was like one sentence, but
So it all depends on which project or which surplus property that we require a real estate broker for. So we might have 2 properties, or we might be buying, or we might be selling. So one might be good for selling, one might be good for purchasing. So that's.
Okay.
It will be our real estate broker for many years, so we can select multiple, and we do that with other bids and RFQs we do.
So we could select all 3 of them if we wanted to.
Yes, ma'am.
And at the time that we're ready to put a piece of property on allow them to bid against each other as far as what the rate would be?
That's acceptable, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We will be limited to those three. We cannot go and select someone else. So those will be the three that we can choose from.
Okay. So it's not much different than when we end up getting several vendors and then go out to bid for something.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
Thank you,
So
Madam.
we could approve all three of these, just, we wouldn't, like, if we did accept all three of them, we just wouldn't be able to use Winston Properties for that one piece of property that there's, but we
That
could
they've
use them
said-
for something else.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion, any other questions anyone has on that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve all three. If that's,
I'll second.
Okay, with the understanding that Mr. Moore is abstaining, we will now vote on accepting all three. Those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? Thank you, Ms. Graft. And that passes, that we will take all three. And thank you for the reconsider. That's exactly where
Yes, thank you.
we get to learn. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on now. Consider renewal of auditing engagement for the 2024-2025 school year. Mr. Whitefield.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you do have the engagement letter from the auditing firm of Snow Garrett. The district, it did engage Snow Garrett for the 22-23 school audit year, and you just received that audit this year, for this year. They have submitted the attached 23-24 school year engagement letter for consideration by the district. Selecting an auditor early in the school year allows for both the district and the auditor to plan work together during the year. Snow Garrett Williams has served the district extremely well for many years and has a very good understanding of how the district operates. The familiarity and understanding of the district operations enables Snow Garrett Williams to provide the district with a very comprehensive and thorough audit each and every year. The recommendation is from administrations that the Board of Trustees approve the engagement of Snow Garrett Williams, Certified Public Accountants, as an independent auditor for the 23-24 school year.
Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
How long has Snow Garrett been the auditor? How many years?
There was a time period where we had a separate auditor for 2 years, but they've been the auditors for the district since I've been here. But there was a 2-year span where we did have separate auditors.
How long have you been here, Emmett?
I've been here since 1999.
Okay.
I can tell you, since 2018, we've used Snow Garrett.
18?
Well, that's 1999.
No, I'm not, I don't know when that switch was. but I
Those
think
2
it
years
was-
were about 2000, I want to say 2009, 2010. I couldn't swear by it.
What was the reason?
The board requested a change.
Okay, just wanted to try someone different.
Yep. And after that audit, they decided to go back.
On page 3 of the document from February 6th, the last paragraph states that from time to time they use a third-party service. How often have we used the third-party service to service our account?
The third-party service that they're talking about is they will probably, what they're talking about is that they have another outside auditing firm go over their paperwork to be for sure that they were independent, and they use discretion.
Okay.
Good questions, good questions.
And the, let me see what I was going to say. And you mentioned that there was change, then they went back, but is it good practice to keep an auditor, or is it better or worse to change every once in a while to get fresh eyes looking at things?
There are different schools of thought on that. TEA does not require it, and they do like, the districts do have a relationship with their auditor, because we can call them during the year and say, how should we handle this? and they give us the right answers so that we don't do something that's not necessarily illegal, but maybe we didn't do it the correct way to begin with. But we can call them and get their advice at any time during the year.
Okay, thank you.
I do know that this is a great company, and they do a lot of school districts, and so they are very familiar with school finance and how things should be run. And so I don't have any problem with Snow Garrett Williams. I feel like they've proven to us that they can handle this district and do a good job.
And we continue getting 100s in our first rating.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
And when I say we do work well together, we're typically their first audit, and we're typically their first presentation to a board in December. Most districts don't get their audit presentation until January.
Do they only do schools?
They have a multitude, but the team that works with us only does schools.
Madam President, I move that we approve the engagement of Snow Garrett Williams, CPAs, as the independent auditor for the 23-24 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Alana made the motion. Ms. Gore did the second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so that's 5-2. The nays being Ms. Lowry and Ms. Graft. Moving on now to the reports. Ms. Clark.
Thank you,
student
Madam
attendance.
President. Yes, I'm excited to talk about attendance now. We track attendance for lots of reasons. Mainly, there are two that rise to the top. The first one is if students aren't in class getting good instruction, they can get some gaps in learning that make them struggle. And so we do track their individual attendance and make sure that there are going to be illnesses and things like that, but make sure that we are doing all we can to get them to come to school. We also have to track attendance so that Mr. Whitefield's assumptions are correct. And we've been raising our attendance rates since COVID. So COVID was a really big hit on everybody's attendance rate. And so your first report in there is our historic ADA report since the COVID year. And it's finally to a point where now in 2024, we have hit the same rate that we had prior to COVID. So that's, if we can maintain that for the rest of the school year, then we will be back to where we're just trying to improve attendance for the kids' sake and our and making sure that we can budget appropriately. So if you can see, we have our first 6 weeks is historically pretty high. So pre-COVID, it was 96.6, and it wasn't this year. This year, though, our fourth 6 weeks, we have had flu and things like that, so our attendance did take a little bit of a hit, and we're hoping that our fifth 6 weeks and sixth 6 weeks gets us or keeps us back on track for that 94.6, 95 percentile range. We'd really like to be where the districts are that a healthy district will have anywhere between 97% is a great target. And so that's really the target that we're shooting for as we continue to improve our attendance rates across the district.
Do we have any problems, or what percentage of problems do we have with chronic absenteeism?
So I'll show you the chronic absenteeism with the truancy cases when we get to the end of this, if you'll, and I'll address that number. So district campus-wise ADA, our principals look at this really closely to see how their campus is doing and how they are tracking. If they drill down into this report that we have a RAWE is our platform that we use to track attendance and to track truancy. And so chronic absenteeism. And so they can look and see if there's some trends for, like, say, Fridays or right before a break, or how those attendance days are going. They can start to see dips when they're starting to be like a flu going around the school, and then they can put out, it's time for everyone to wash their hands twice instead of once, and that kind of a thing. And so they really look at that, and we use it at a district rate to see how things are going on their campuses. If you go to district communications through RAWE, so this platform that we have has made it easier and more efficient for our admin teams to talk to our families that are having their children struggle with chronic absenteeism. Our truancy guidelines that for getting to a reporting of truancy case to the court, we have a plan in place where at 3 unexcused absences, they're supposed to get a letter home to talk about the importance of good attendance. At 5, we're supposed to do a intervention plan with the family to talk about like what is the barrier. And these unexcused absences, those are not talking about illnesses. When they are excused absences from a doctor, that's not what we're talking about here. So that intervention plan is to talk about the barriers and what's the struggle, so that they can partner with parents on that. At 8 unexcused absences, there's a second letter that goes home, and then truancy per state law is at 10 unexcused absences. So the communication trends across the district, you can see we have sent, since this was pulled at the beginning, middle of February, 5,250 letters have gone home, 856 parents and student contacts via phone, 4,921 emails, 3,685 text messages, and 1,494 read receipts. So we can track and see that they're getting that information. If they're not, you can follow up with a phone call and have some good dialogue about what's going on. If you look at the district interventions, those are the interventions that we are prescripted to follow before we can have a truancy court case. So we have had 98 truancy court filings this year. So district-wide for chronic absenteeism that's unexcused, 98 so far. And 96 of the notices have gone out through RAWE. There's a couple of them that we hold on to there's some circumstances. We're having communication with the family. We're thinking that we can get there, but then they file outside of that. And so again, that's filing truancy if you have 10 absences. So you can see our biggest number is in the letter 1, and we're hoping that communication spurs the conversation between the district and the families so that we can troubleshoot and get them in class. And we also, the 2 bars are at the end of that graph that you're seeing on page 6. That is excused absences, because if you have excused absences, but there's quite a few of them, that still is a problem for learning gaps. You know, they're missing critical information, and a lot of that builds upon each other, and so we need to make sure that we're having that communication, even with excused absences, and just partnering with parents to get students in class so they can be successful learners. Okay, so did I answer your question to satisfaction, or okay. Are there any other questions about attendance and our truancy process?
I got a quick question on the district communications through RAWE. It says the data was pulled on February 13th of 2023, so it's a year old.
2024. I just didn't update that, I guess.
That's tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, I pulled it on Monday, last Monday. It probably was last year, February 13th, when I pulled it, and I didn't update it on here that it is last Monday that I pulled it this time. I apologize for that mistake.
And it's been about a year since Emmett and I ran the numbers, but a percent of ADA, so like 1% gain in attendance rate, we're talking in the neighborhood of over 6 figures in additional revenue to the district. So it's substantial money for us when kids come to school. But more important than that, Like, there is a direct correlation between kids coming to school and how they perform on standardized tests. So we want them to be successful academically as well.
Right.
And when you see a campus like Bacchus perform at a higher level, you also notice that their attendance rate has gone up from where it was 3 and 4 and 5 years ago.
The principals and the campus teachers are working very, very hard to put in some fun incentives that don't cost anything or cost very little, like a popcorn party or something like that, when they have a whole bunch of good attendance streaks in a row. And sometimes they have competition. Most of our elementary schools will have March Madness attendance competitions, like where one classroom will go against another classroom on campus to have the best attendance rate. They're trying to make it fun and competitive to come to school. And it is the most important thing that we are there to get them those skills so that they can be successful. The STAR test, but learning how to read, learning math, those things don't happen if they don't come and get that good Tier 1 instruction with their peers.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Mr. Whitefield, why don't you take financial statements and then just go right on into cash flow and investment report?
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you do have the financial statements for month ending January 31st, 2024. You can see that revenue collected to date equals 61.07% of the budgeted amount compared to 66% of 22 and 23. Expenditures to date represent 40.3% of the budget as compared to 45.2% of the budget in 22-23. I know that you did notice that our property taxes are a little bit lower than they were last year, but again, that is due to the timing of the statements going out this year. That would be the notable thing on the financial statements. The next report is your cash flow and investment report. You can see that as of January 31st, 2024, the district did receive $253,910.47 in interest, as compared to last year. In January, we received $220,432. So interest rates are doing well for us. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I'd say there are no questions. So it is now 7:56, and I adjourn this meeting of the school board.
Thank you, board.